So first, welcome to all of you. Thanks for being part of our virtual events. We put on 60-something virtual events last year. It was crazy. It's a crazy year. We all want to leave it behind us. This year, we're going bigger and better. We will put on 30-something events, but in this really cool hop-in platform. It'll take you just a second to get used to it, but it really is pretty amazing for being able to network and move around and go from breakout room to breakout room. It almost feels like we're in person. We can't wait until that happens. Hopefully fourth quarter, fingers crossed. But glad you're all with us. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Chicagoland Food and Beverage Network, we're a mission-driven industry organization. We're almost 4 years old, and our job is to bring together the incredible food and beverage industry of the greater Chicagoland area to do some important stuff: grow the industry, drive innovation, grow the local economy, and create jobs. And again, we do this a lot, and we'll do it 60-something times this year. Here are our incredible members. Instead of me listing all 125 corporate members, we just put them on this fun slideshow. So look fast. There will be a quiz later. At any rate, glad you're here. If you're interested in membership in the Chicagoland Food and Beverage Network, please reach out. We're always looking for new members and ways to, I'll say, connect and communicate and make sure that you all are linked into this incredible industry. We also, just last year, launched a sister organization, a charitable organization called Bigger Table. Bigger Table brings together that same incredible food and beverage industry of the greater Chicagoland area to address, I'll say, persistent, challenging issues in our local communities. Food insecurity, unemployment, and inclusive economic development are where we are focused. And in fact, we are just days away from producing another 300,000 servings of healthy food that will be donated to the food banks here in the greater Chicagoland area. Food insecurity is at an all-time high in the midst of this pandemic. It's horrible stuff, and we've found a way for industry to help even more than usual. And if you want to find out more, I encourage you to take a look at biggertable.org. And if you love our mission, we encourage you to donate. As always, we love to get social. We start the conversation here and encourage you to use the chat features along the right-hand side. Click on event or backstage or stage, depending on where you are, and chat with us here. Put your questions in there so you don't have to hold them. You can literally leave them there, and our fantastic panelists will find them. And we start the conversation here, but we continue it in social media. Here's all of our exciting hashtags and everything else. We hope to continue the conversation with you there. And with that, I am going to turn it over to really your hosts for the day, Steve Gaither and Jordan Buckner, two of my favorite people in the world who have put together an amazing, amazing panel. Take it away, guys, and we'll see you in the breakout rooms in a little bit.
Hello, everybody. Hopefully I can be heard right now. Welcome to the Founder Series 2.0. I'm Steve Gaither, CMO of CA Fortune. We're a national sales agency, a sales accelerator, a branding and digital agency, an e-com agency, overall a consumer brands agency. I have had the pleasure to partner with the lovely and talented Jordan Buckner from Foodbevy and T-Square's fame to bring you the new and improved Founder Series. I'm sort of the guy behind the curtain mixed with Jordan's I know entrepreneurship. Oftentimes when we pick the top for this, oftentimes we get asked, how should I go to market? And the answer is always, it depends, right? You got sales and e-com channels are blurring. Natural channel is lowering prices and increasing selection. Conventional channel is placing products in line, like gluten-free crackers are now next to Ritz and Club. Amazon is acting like a retailer, and retailers are acting like Amazon. So for short term, real quick, I'm going to kick Jordan out for a second so I can actually present a couple quick slides and then bring him back around. Let's see if I can do this right. And I'm going to go full screen, and I'll rip through this quickly just to lay it a land. First, I want to set the stage sort of what was happening pre-COVID, right? So Direct to consumer, you could grow the brands quickly. There is and was a plateau, whether that's 1 million, 5 million, or 7 million, or even with Blue Apron, that was 500 million. They could not get to 600 million. But direct to consumer, quick growth path that flattens out. Amazon, you can go a little bit higher, but it still flattens out at a certain point. Pre-COVID, alt food service, the front of the counter stuff without the trade spend, at your panini shops and cafes, et cetera, was a really growing area. But then the long tail is retail, right? So it's the only way to really get to 100 million is through retail. So you have to do your time on building that while getting revenue from direct consumer and Amazon, and then you're off to the races. COVID's had some changes, right? Alt food service and restaurants, there's not much going on there right now. Amazon and direct to consumer have grown massively, but so has retail. So there's sort of this new landscape, right? And I'll just quickly describe how I look at it. Every company should have a Shopify site. The reason I like Shopify is you get not only a front-facing consumer site, you get an e-com site, you get a front page or storefront for Amazon, and you get listing on Walmart.com. It's sort of a 3 or 4 for 1 opportunity. But if you build Shopify, you still have to drive people there. So whether it's digital social, whether it's SEO, whether it's retargeting or remarketing, you have to spend to drive traffic there. I believe it's a little bit less influencer or the KPIs that happened in the past. I'm less worried about fans and engagement, more worried about actual sales. And then Amazon is sort of like its own grocery store, right? I'm less worried about driving traffic to Amazon. I'm more worried about getting people shopping in Amazon to find my product, right? So that's where Amazon SEO and Amazon ads kick in. Amazon does like a little bit of third-party traffic that you can send ads to, but be careful because you're already spending money on Amazon SEO and Amazon ads. Can you afford digital on top of that? So just be careful, and your margins are less on Amazon, even though you can sell more. On the far left, you have brick and mortar, which category reviews are back open now, and more people are finding it a more relevant channel, even for emerging brands. So there you have your H-E-Bs, your Walmarts, your Whole Foods. And each one of these retailers, though, now has a click and brick component, right? So each one has a retailer.com, Target.com, a Walmart.com, a Publix.com, a Jewel.com. And what's grown over COVID is pre-COVID traffic is back to the brick and mortar locations, but you have this whole growing area of curbside pickup has grown 95%, and that's still pulling from Unify and KeHE or the store shelves. Instacart and Ship, actually through the retailer.com, has grown 45%. So this is really a new channel. And if you're looking at trade spend over at brick and mortar, you've got ugly things like slotting and free fills, demos, which aren't happening right now, promos, which are good because they actually tie to velocity, or displays are good because product on the floor sells more than on the shelf. As you build your distribution, you can actually negotiate with the retailers to put the money instead of slotting or free fills into retailer.com. So now when I'm running my digital traffic, I can send it to Shopify, or I can also support my retailers. So if I have a consumer in Florida and I have a Publix 1.5 miles away, if I'm off promotion, because I don't want to send people there if I'm on promo because I'm spending trade spend there, can I afford trade spend plus digital spend and still make my margins? Maybe not, but when I'm off promo, let's send them there. So if I'm in stock at Publix 1.5 miles away, off promo, then I'm going to send my digital ad to Publix.com and sell somebody in the cart. If I'm on promo or not in Publix, then I will send to direct to consumer. So that's just the landscape, how it's changed over time. And I will stop sharing so we can bring our friend Jordan back to the table. And there he is. Jordan, you're back. So I figured from here, I set the stage sort of with the channels and thoughts. I'd love Jordan to take it over, give his story, and more importantly, bring in the founders so they could tell how they're attacking this.
Excellent, Steve. Appreciate the setup because I think that gives some amazing context to what our founders are facing right now, and especially on this panel. Everyone who's joining us today has less than launched their company in the last 2 years, and some a lot shorter than that. And so very much dealing with how to build a brand during the during the pandemic, right? And what challenges they're facing and how they've had to pivot throughout. As a way of quick introduction to those who don't know me, Jordan Buckner, founder of Foodbevy. I'm sorry, someone's dropping a delivery off at our door. But an online community to help support food and beverage companies grow from startup to scale. And so happy to partner with Steve and Chicagoland Food and Beverage Network for this conversation. So today my guests are Ashley, Chris, and Emily. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. And so Ashley, I'll have you go ahead and start.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Awesome. My little sound button isn't coming up for me, so I thought I was muted the whole time. So, Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Nicholson. I'm the founder and chief snack officer of BTR Bar. So we make the first protein bars with a purpose. So each bar is boosted with a special blend of plant-based superfoods, purpose-driven adaptogens, and functional mushrooms.
Excellent. Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. I'm Chris Oates. I'm the CEO and founder, also the chief Imaginist for Waju. And Waju is a sparkling water that's sourced not from municipal tap supplies. It's not depleted, it doesn't deplete a natural aquifer underground, but it's the only brand to source entirely from the naturally occurring water in real fruit. And what that means is that we are tapping a new sustainable water source that gives you the goodness of fruit, such as vitamin C and antioxidants, while also just being more gentle on the planet overall. So really happy to be here.
Excellent. Thanks. And we'll get into that a little bit more. And Emily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Groden. I'm the founder and CEO of Evergreen. I need a fun title like Ashley and Chris. Evergreen are better for you waffles, a really clean label. I was a working mom and wanted to feed my own daughter frozen waffles and didn't want to give her all the preservatives and refined sugars I was seeing in the brands that were already on the market. So Evergreen waffles are made with 100% whole grain flour, have no refined sugars, no dairy, no preservatives, and are flavored just by fruits, vegetables, nuts, and spices. So no artificial flavors, no quote unquote natural flavors, no artificial colors, just the good stuff in there.
Excellent. I love that. And so, Emily, we're actually going to start the conversation with you because I know you launched Evergreen in retail stores and selling in Whole Foods and a couple others. Tell us about that experience of launching in Whole Foods and retail, and then how you had to pivot now during the pandemic.
Sure. So I launched in Whole Foods, hit shelves in Whole Foods in the Midwest in about the second week of March of 2020. So if you think about what was happening in the second week of March of 2020, it's an odd time to launch a product. It perversely, in some ways, it was a good time to launch a frozen product because a lot of people were running into stores and, grabbing whatever they could off the shelves at that point, particularly in frozen. And so I think I had the benefit of a lot of consumers that maybe wouldn't have given us a second thought at that point, grabbing Evergreen, throwing it in their carts and giving us a try and then becoming repeat customers. So in a weird way, I had a little bit of a boost right off the bat, without any marketing from my end due to the beginning of the pandemic. As mentioned, we don't have the opportunity now to do demo tables in stores, which is, such a big opportunity for new brand customers to try the product, hopefully, buy it. So I think that has been certainly a disadvantage for new brands like Evergreen. But in terms of pivoting, brick and mortar is actually still my, number one priority. We do have an e-commerce site, but for anybody in the frozen space, you will know it's really expensive to ship a frozen product. After you factor in dry ice and storage in a facility that has frozen a freezer and having to ship expedited instead of ground, all of that makes it really expensive. So I actually view direct to consumer at this point almost as a marketing expense in and of itself. So, I want people that hear about our brands that aren't in the Midwest, which is where we are available brick and mortar, to be able to get their hands on Evergreen. And so that's how we do it. Over time, I will work on bringing those costs down to make it a channel that is really worth me going after really aggressively. But for now, it is still the focus is still really on brick and mortar for us.
Got it. I know that's always a interesting situation of getting on shelf and then figuring out how to get off the shelf, especially in the freezer. But glad that people are shopping that set now, and that gives you a boost definitely. So Ashley, you are in the launch as a D2C business. How are you thinking about growth in your channel strategy during this time? And then, where does retail kind of play into your future?
Such a great question, Jordan. So we launched about 4.5 months ago. So we're still in our infancy. We launched at the end of September, early October, soft launch, direct to consumer. So my experience is in e-com. So I knew even prior to the pandemic that was going to be the channel that I was going to go after the hardest. And it's especially in the protein bar category and the on-the-go snacking set took a huge hit in retail in 2020 because people weren't on the go. However, people were still snacking at their desks. They were snacking at home. Snacking consumption rose in 2020 because people were eating more, stress eating, and wanted something that was a better for you snack. So we actually saw in November alone, we saw a spike in 260% in revenue growth on our website. So direct to consumer has been my primary focus, but that is right now. I know that, and Steve, you alluded to this, in order to really grow the business and be everywhere our consumer wants us is to get into retail. So, we have consumers that are ordering 9-10 times on our website, subscribing to our Subscribe and Save program. We're a shelf-stable bar. So like Emily said, we don't use any natural flavors, nothing artificial, no emulsifiers, gums, cleanest label on the market. We're a nut butter-based bar, but we do not sit in the refrigerated set. So it is easy for us and cost-effective to ship. So, definitely using that to our advantage right now. But every day we get 10, 20 requests. When you're going to be in Whole Foods, when you're going to be in Erewhon Market. So that is, being very cognizant that 2021 is when we are starting to, make that move into natural while building our consumer base. So right now, our primary channel is actually our website. We do sell on Amazon, but I'm really trying to build our email list, our SMS list. So being able to own that consumer. And then when we launch into Whole Foods, regionally, we're based in San Francisco. So we're in NorCal region. We can say to our 20,000 email subscribers and 50,000 SMS subscribers, we're in Whole Foods, go buy us here. So being able to build that from the ground up has given me a great opportunity to get to know our consumer, really hone in on our target consumer, and just get to meet people, source new, basically crowdsource new ideas for our products. So it's been a great opportunity, but I have the retail bug. I think there's something so special about seeing your product on shelf and being able to, walk into a Whole Foods and just grab a bar off the shelf. And, our packaging is in the background right here. It's really, I created the packaging so it sits well on the digital shelf, but that also people, a mile away in a retail store can see it. So we definitely know that, starting right now, we're really starting that active pitch into the natural channel. So, yeah.
Well, it's interesting, too, that Ashley, you chose to go digital, and actually, while grocery channel and retail is up all over the place, the one place or one of the few places it's down is bars, right?
Yeah.
Especially single serve or anything that's not in a 4-pack or not in a snack fashion set that's been hit, where Emily focused smartly on retail in a category that thrived during COVID with frozen, right? So good, whether it's hindsight 2020 or not, good job, both of you.
And I think that's one thing that I learned from you, Steve, is really looking at how each category within the store performs differently, because each kind of set is pretty distinct from, the tea aisle to being slow velocity to the perimeter being really high velocity, and understanding where you sit and how your strategy changes based on that. So Chris, you launched a kind of alpha version of the product and getting to roll out a new like beta form of the product. You are looking at how and where to launch. You have a beverage. Talk me through your
Yeah.
thinking.
So, well, first of all, just to give a little bit of background, I worked at PepsiCo for almost a decade. So sometimes, I structure things out and plan things out a little bit more, a little bit ahead of what, a little bit on a longer term basis when, things change rapidly. So I had this, phased approach. I said, okay, phase one, it's going to be a pilot test, 1.0 in retail in LA, right? So local, up and down the street, natural specialty retailers in LA. I was going to, use that, I was going to be there I actually live in New York, but I was going to, move to LA so I could support the launch, be there to be in store and do the in-store demos, support the brand, go, store by store and retailer by retailer to do the brand pitch. And phase two was actually, to get those learnings from 1.0 and then optimize 2.0 so that I could launch in more of a scaled approach. So, since I'd already be in LA, maybe it's a greater California expansion to NorCal also, and the greater California region. So that was the plan, right? And then, and this was the plan for to launch in early summer. I moved out to LA. I had a distributor. I was already talking to retailers and buyers and getting them to be willing to carry the product. And then COVID hit, right? And so I hightailed it back to New York, which is where I live and my fiance lives, and I totally pivoted. So I switched the plans from local LA market e-commerce to Amazon DTC, our own website e-commerce. So full scale e-commerce, and really I think the goal for phase one was to get those in market learnings that will inform my 2.0 relaunch, right? So, still, with e-commerce, you can accomplish those same things. And I was able to do that, right? You have a lot more data on your consumers, who they are. You can survey consumers. You miss some of that in-store demo, person-to-person interaction where they're tasting the product, they're giving you real-time feedback. But you still can get a lot of rich data on e-commerce. So I've been able to get all those learnings from 1.0, and now I'm incorporating all of that into a 2.0, which is almost a 3.0. How much more advanced it is from the first one. But that plan is to launch the new 2.0 product this April. And I think just in general, the dynamic of how people are shopping at this moment is very different. And I was talking to, as a founder, I think it's good to talk to other founders and get their experience, especially those who are further down the line. And I was talking to somebody who had just launched, had just gotten national Whole Foods distribution for his canned beverage, and a lot of notoriety around that. He's been there for a few months, and I think the biggest change, or one of the big changes coming out of COVID, is that you lack that in-store discovery, right? And the in-store discovery piece is through sampling. It's through people going to shelf and looking for something new. But now people are going in the store and they're trying to get in and out, and you're not able to sample. So it's more difficult to get your product in front of consumers. And what he's saying is like, yeah, he's getting a lot of good press about national Whole Foods rollout, but the turns have been really slow. And when that happens, your product gets put down in the shelf. People are looking for products that tend to be a little bit more familiar to them. So I think as a result of that, I'm actually looking to shifting my plans even more, because I still wanted to do a retail launch back half of the year. But now I'm thinking, at least until things settle down a little bit, that maybe I, keep along the e-commerce route for a little bit more. DTC, I'm building out a Shopify site. So keep along that path a little bit longer. to wait till things die down until I take it to retail, because it is a new product and it's tough to get people to discover new products.
Yeah, and Steve, you talk about this a lot, right? And owning the home strategy and not to grow too fast beyond your means.
Well, unless you have lots of funding, right? But nothing's worse than like if you're in the Midwest, own home, own your region, control trade spend on retail. You can go wide on DTC and Amazon, but I've seen too many people say, Sprout says, come grow with me. And, you know, you give them a case and a half of free fills. You're not there to support with demos. Then they ask you to promo the product you just gave them. Then you get yanked off the shelf and you're 20K in the hole.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're with Unifying KHE proper versus UNI Next or KHE's Elevate program. And they're opening up the floodgates. And next thing you know, you get bill backs and you're writing KHE and Unify checks for retailers you don't even know that aren't moving. And you start bleeding to death over here. So distribution, I always argue own home and velocity is great. Distribution can be the kiss of death if you aren't capitalized.
No, that's exactly right. And retailers can be very expensive if you're growing with large national change very quickly. And so you have to think of it as an upfront investment, but the payoff is going to be months or years down the road. It's not going to be the next month or next week. Mm-hmm. And so you need to really build in that into your capital structure. So we had a question around getting trial during this time. Emily, is there anything that you've been able to find to get trial for your frozen waffles in the freezer section? Like, how are you connecting with consumers?
I've tried a couple different strategies. One, I think as Steve mentioned, promos. I did a promo in July of 2020 at Whole Foods and, you know, saw my sales double that month. And then they kind of stayed up at that level in the months following. And so for me, that showed like promos really work. They get people are excited by the sales tag and they try it and then hopefully they like it and become repeat customers. So promos have been really helpful. I have done some work with influencers, which I think can be really helpful as well. Just, you know, as a new brand without a huge platform, kind of tapping into their bigger platforms and their trusted networks. That has driven some trial in the Midwest as well. And then the other area that I have focused on that has been really helpful for me is PR. So I have engaged two amazing PR firms that are working together. And, you know, for me, the story of my brand is really personal, like came out of my own family and my own need for my own daughter. And I have found that getting that story out into the world has helped connect with customers. And so, you know, I've seen some of the biggest jumps in sales after a big article comes out that I know has had a pretty wide readership. So I think there are a number of ways to try to get creative and to drive trial, even in this time when we can't be in the stores, setting up demo tables and giving away samples.
Yes, Emily, I absolutely love that. And I'm a huge advocate of PR. There's a couple different forms of it, right? There's telling your story to the industry, like the food beverage industry, and then there's also PR where you're reaching and telling your story to consumers. And I think that for most brands, they have a story to tell, whether it's around personal founder journey, whether it's around sustainability, whether it's around innovation. And you know, people are looking for brands that they can pick up and care about and know information about the founder. And so I think that's an amazing way of getting the word out without having to spend, you know, tons of money on advertising and too much. So, and then like the promos help on top of that, right? Because when they see your product in the store, they've heard about it and then they see it's on discount as well. They're much more likely to pick it up and try it.
Yeah, I think attacking it in a couple different ways kind of works together and builds upon each other, and that's been helpful for me.
I love that. Ashley, how about you? What have you been able to do online to increase trial?
Yeah, we've been getting, so similar to Emily, I find PR so amazing to be able to raise brand awareness. So not necessarily always, hitting the top line revenue, but just being able to get the story out there has been so critical to our brand. Like Emily, our brand is very personal. I started BTR Bar as a tribute and honor to my parents, and being able to tell my story on podcasts, and we had a Forbes mention, and we just were in Thrill List. I mean, all of those things really help to just get the brand out there. Organic influencers, we have a brand ambassador team that just loves the product. And just gifting them samples. And then we have brand ambassadors that come back and just buy and restock because they love it so much. So, at the core, having a good product is so important. But I think we've been getting really creative about our offerings. So being able to be D2C, we can be super nimble. So and we do all of our own fulfillment. So that really helps. So we have sampler packs, we have build your own boxes. We, have so many different options for people to mix and match. I own our chat bot and our customer service experience. So if a customer says, I really want to try this, and I want this flavor and this flavor, I can manually do that right now, knowing that we're in, unprecedented times. We've heard that so many times in the past year. I can manually do that and be really quick and nimble. As we scale, those things change, but at least we're acquiring those customers and really being able to drive that trial. So when we first launched, we had a limited edition sampler pack where people literally just paid the cost of shipping and we sent them the product for free. And those people have now come back and are loyal customers and are now ordering boxes, like I said, 9 or 10 times, which is just amazing to see. So I think being able to drive trial online has been really, I don't want to say simple, but it's been really nimble for us, and just trying to constantly get creative. So we're partnering with a couple of other brands. We're putting coupons in their orders, and they're putting coupons in our orders. So just being able to constantly just think on our feet and try to do something new to engage the consumer, because Facebook and Instagram, digital advertising works very well for us, but we're also in a very saturated space. The bar category, I get served probably 30 ads a day. So I know what our consumers are getting served as well. So just trying to stand out as much as possible and offer something different and always be ahead of the curve is something that we're really trying to do.
And actually talk about that really, go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to vouch for you. I mean, when we were on Clubhouse, I went on your website and hit the chat bot, and Ashley was there. I was like, this is real.
You get her. Actually, one thing that I do love, and we had a couple questions about this, is you do a great job at using user-generated video for your ads on Facebook in particular. I see them all the time and they look great. Talk a little bit about that and like what's working and what you've learned from that.
Yeah. So I love when you comment on our ads, Jordan. That makes me so happy. So I'm glad that you're getting served our ads, which means that they're targeting the right people. So that's great. So yeah, I mean, user-generated content and content in general. So in our little breakout room, that's one of the talking points that we'll all chat about, is something that is so, it's so much fun for me. So I think I flock to creating content and working with our brand ambassador team to create content and leverage that content to use in ads. So getting the user-generated content is the easy part. Really, tapping the community of consumers that already use the product. And, as soon as someone tags us on Instagram or tags us on Facebook, reaching out to them, sending them a personal message, saying, hey, can you send me that video? And then trying to really leverage that into Facebook and Instagram ads has really been working. Really, the other ads that have been working really well for our D2C business is being able to call out the differentiators, as opposed to, there's so many bar companies that, maybe they'll throw a recipe up there and they'll say, here's, you can microwave your bar. And we've tried that as well, but it just doesn't reach the consumer as much as really hitting those differentiation points, because that's your unique value prop. And then the consumer, if they can see it right then and there, like an us versus them, that type of ad does really, really well, along with just having the consumer talk about the product. So we've tried, static images where people are holding the product, and that it works. But when people are actually speaking, video and leaning into video hard has been something that I am terrified to do. I'm so terrified to be recording myself, but that I just decided in 2021, this is what I have to do. I have to go on TikTok, I have to go on Instagram Reels, and just do it, get it done, and start recording all this footage and gathering all this footage from our consumers. And that's been working the best, is people seeing people talk about the product so excited. That's really what's been converting for us.
I love that. And I think one thing, you don't need actually like highly curated content that's like perfectly staged is not doing as well. Like when it's too glossy, people are skipping over it because it looks like an ad, but seeing like making social media social again, like seeing real people on there really works. Chris, I'll give you the last 2 minutes to really talk about your message of sustainability with Waju and if that's how that's resonating with customers and how you explain it. I know it's a kind of new product and new innovation out there. So what are you doing to educate people?
Yeah, so just to add a little bit more color to that. So it is water sourced from fruit. And what we're doing is, I think how it started is, I'd worked at Pepsi for years, kind of fell in love with the natural product space, but really thought there was so much more to be done on the sustainability side, especially when it comes to packaged water. So, I set out to find a solution for this, and I found it after I left. And, I actually, ended up, I partnered with fruit suppliers because what I found is that when they go to create fruit concentrate, when they dehydrate that fruit, they're actually taking the water out. And then normally, because they look at it as, kind of it's overlooked, it's a byproduct, they normally discard that. So, I was looking for this natural water source that, and they had this already that I could utilize. So was able to tap into that, partner with them, and then save and upcycle this water and then create this and transform this into a delicious product, right? So, it's a little tough to tell that full story. So I think, what I've learned in at least 1.0 is that, people, first of all, they want to know that the product tastes good. They want to know that, it's refreshing, it's delicious, it's organic fruit. Those are the things they really care about initially. And then once I bring them in to the fold, then I can tell more of the story about sustainability. But truthfully, it's something that, we struggle with a lot about, what's the prioritization of, the sustainability message, right? Like, do we really want to own it and talk about upcycled? And, people don't really know what that means. Like maybe, there's maybe a 2% awareness of upcycled. So do we want to be the ones that champion that message, bring awareness to that? Or do we want to, bring people in with the taste, the refreshment, the organic, and then once they're there, we expose them more about to the sustainability message. So it's something we struggle with a lot, but it's core to who we are. And we've found that, when we do include some of the sustainability message and why it's sustainable, that it tends to resonate with people. They tend to be a little bit more engaged. So we definitely are bringing it more front and center. But to what degree is what we kind of, go back and forth on.
I think you're right there. At the same time, same thing with do-gooder stories and helping out and upcycling. They're great taillights, but consumers are still selfish when they're shopping, which is what can you do for me right now? And then back of the pack reading, at a later time is the better way to get that long form story to keep them coming back. So I think you're going down the right path.
Yeah.